Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm sorry to interrupt everybody's amazing conversations for a very, very short announcement. We will be starting in 4 minutes, so I'm asking everybody to quickly grab any drinks, water that you might need, and please come over to the front. There are lots of seats that I see are still empty. We'll be starting in 4 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can we have your attention? I hope you have your drinks and are now ready for the main program to kickstart. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Regional Media Salon, organized by the UNDP with the Earth Journalism Network. My name is Aparna, and I'm a new member of the Business and Human Rights team at the UNDP Asia Pacific. Today, we're hosting this salon-style conversation around the theme of Behind the Algorithm, Technology, Rights, and Environment in ASEAN. This is held under the UNDP-EU Joint Action Program called the Agents of Change, Youth and Media for Responsible Business Practices. Today's salon brings together a multi-stakeholder audience to explore how BHRE, so Business, Human Rights, and the Environment reporting, works specifically in relation to emerging tech, rights, and communities in ASEAN. To kick us off, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Andres Rodgar, Head of the Regional Team, Asia Pacific in the European Commission, Delegation of the European Union to Thailand, for opening remarks. Mr. Rodgar.
Thanks a lot, and also from my side, ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished guests, dear friends, in particular also from UNDP and the Earth Journalism Network, a very warm welcome. It's great to be here and to survive the heat coming and walking from our delegation. It's a fireplace chat, I learned, but luckily the fire is not so hot here. So today's event is a very important for us. It will allow to reflect jointly on an issue of growing importance for both of our regions, the ASEAN region and the EU, and that is how we advance sustainability, human rights, and at the same time the digital responsibility and transition in an increasingly interconnected world. The EU is committed to promote the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment alongside a safe, inclusive, and ethical digital future. These priorities are deeply connected as we confront the triple planetary crisis of pollution, climate change, and biodiversity loss. We must also address the potential impact of technological transformation on the human rights, labor conditions, and on the civic space. In this context, you, the independent journalists and powerful storytellers, are indispensable. You help making sustainability and commitments real and visible. You bring light and real-life experiences can expose abuses and ensure that governments and businesses and effectively all stakeholders alike remain accountable for what we are doing. This is particularly relevant in the context of the digital economy growing so rapidly. This growth offers to all of us immense opportunities. There's a lot of benefits which come with it for innovation, for connecting each other, for prosperity to be shared. At the same time, it nevertheless also requires clear and effective safeguards. Without them, digital expansion could lead to many unintended consequences, including labor rights violations, reinforced discrimination, and restrictions of civic freedoms online. The EU has sought to respond with concrete and binding frameworks. And this includes, and we have pioneered it, I think, as the first in the EU, with the EU Artificial Intelligence, the AI Act, in 2024, which will now enter into force, and the Corporate Sustainable Due Diligence Directive. These are tools to work strengthening corporate accountability, improve transparency, and to help ensuring that technological and economic progress remains aligned with fundamental rights and international standards. Media freedom, youth engagement, a safe civic space. These are essential elements for democratic and sustainable future. Young people, journalists, and civil society actors play a vital role in challenging impunity, exposing violation, informing society, fostering a culture of openness and shared responsibility. Issues such as climate justice, human rights, and corporate responsibility cannot be treated as separate agendas, as they are interconnected. Sustainability and economic development must go hand in hand, and progress must be measured not only by growth of GDP, but by dignity, fairness, and resilience. The EU stands ready to deepen cooperation with partners in the region and on these important topics. By working together, across institutions, across sectors, across societies, we can help build a future that is greener, more just, more transparent, and more human-centered. We firmly believe in this togetherness. We continue pursuing such objectives also through our projects. And in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Mongolia, the EU has proudly teamed up with UNDP and today also with the Responsible Earth Journalism Network in a project which is called Agent of Change, Youth and Media for Responsible Business Conduct. And this project has been doing marvelous things to bring, in particular, the voice of the youth much clearer to the forefront. For instance, with the Future Labs, no? They kicked off not far away from here in central Patana just a few weeks back. So this important initiative, which is also behind today's gathering, seeks to broaden the corporate understanding of who is considered a stakeholder in the digital age and empowering journalists to promote compliance with the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. Let me stop here, and I wish you all and us a very good and enriching and inspiring exchange in what is hopefully not becoming too hot a fireplace chat. Thank you very much. Kom.
Thank you, Mr. Rodgar. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Harpreet Kaur, Business and Human Rights Specialist, Portfolio Manager at the UNDP Asia Pacific, to set the context for the entire event.
It's a really big mic. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I guess I'm very excited to welcome all of you at today's this media salon. Well, I lead UNDP's regional portfolio on business and human rights, but I do have to admit, of all the work that we do at UNDP's business and human rights team, I guess this continues to be one of my favorites. And there's a reason for that. I think it connects parts of my journey, both my past and present, but I guess also the different positions and roles I've had in my career. So before I started working for UNDP and within the business and human rights space, I actually spent several years of my early life working with BBC Media Action and using communications for development, and I used to lead parts of their journalism training units, so really have had both the privilege and I guess the opportunity to work with journalists across Asia and Africa, training them on social affairs media reporting. So I guess this really, takes me back to the past, but I guess also just in terms of, really excites me for why we are today. But honestly, I guess looking back, I realized that these really are in somehow not very different worlds. They're both about asking better questions. They're about raising questions about the issues that matter and that change and influence people's life. And one lesson, I guess, from all these years that for me have stayed is that, and I'm not trying to teach anybody journalism here, I'm not a journalist by training, but I guess this is some of the lessons is that the best journalism isn't really about chasing the loudest story. I think it is about noticing the questions that nobody is asking. It is about the questions that are not being raised yet. So I think that's really important, especially today, because, look at the world around us. It just feels like every morning you wake up and you look at media and you think about, I have to be diplomatic and not say, oh no, what happened today or what happened last night. But I guess too often, I think, and this is particularly true for business and human rights stories, because too often we are encouraged to see the business and human rights stories or business stories in black or white. Either these stories are great because they're talking about economic progress, they're talking about how much livelihood it's bringing to a particular country, particular community, or we look at these as the stories of corporate abuse, environmental harm or environmental damage, and human rights violations. But reality, as we all know, it all kind of somewhere lies in that gray area. It's way too complex, it's way too complicated, and I guess difficult to understand. Good reporting, we know that is not often about holding those realities together, but really rather than choosing one over another. So kind of really trying to see, what are the different elements of this story. And I guess personally, I realized that very strongly somewhere in 2013, when I was just wrapping up my work at BBC Media Action and had started working on business and human rights work. And I was in Dhaka, 2013, covering Rana Plaza building collapse. That killed over 1,000 people, left many, many injured. Now, if you really look at it, Bangladesh garment industry, I guess, is one of Asia's greatest development stories. It created millions of jobs. It's the one that put Asia and Bangladesh kind of really on the map, on the map of investments, FDIs, but just also in terms of it's one of the largest exporters of garments to the Europe right now. But it also particularly changed lives of women. It really transformed communities and fueled remarkable economic growth in the country. Now, all of that is true, and commendable at the same time. But there was another story that was unfolding at the same time. Concerns about factory safety, labor rights, experiences of workers had been there for years. Questions about working conditions, gender dynamics, and accountability existed. But unfortunately, they did not occupy the same space in public conversation until tragedy forced them to look into those spaces. And I often wonder, and I think at that moment it made me think, asking those questions earlier probably could have helped us identify risks sooner, strengthen protections earlier, but also ultimately build more resilient supply chain. It feels like we're standing somewhere similar today. Again, across Asia, I guess we are witnessing an extraordinary technological transformation. Countries are compelling and countries are really competing to attract AI investment, build data centers, manufacture semiconductors, and secure the critical minerals that will power the next generation of innovation. So it feels like, we're coming back to the same stage of, when the garment industry was exploding, or, when we were looking at the semiconductors or electronics industries. Now, these are all exciting stories. Please don't get me wrong. I mean, of course, these needs to be told because it is the story of economic development. It is the story of, we're just hoping that this is also a story of sustainable development. But I think, as I said, these stories are important and these must be told. But also, we need to answer some of the other questions that we are not asking. Where are these critical minerals coming from? What happens to the communities living around these mines, factories, or data centers? How much water and energy will these industries really consume in a region that's already facing mounting climate pressures? Who labels the data and train AI? These are all important questions, and it's not like they are not being reported. I think they're, you see one article here and there, but by majority, you see how all the good that's coming with this. And again, I think these questions are not anti-business. In fact, they are really, really essential to responsible business, which is the space and the questions that we are here today. So I guess where I look from, wearing both my hats, I think the journalism needs to start exploring and exposing the stories as they happen and be able to bring together different aspects, different facets of the same story. At its best, these stories would help society identify risk early enough to make better decisions, help governments in developing smarter policies, smarter projects, but also help companies build more resilient business models and ensure that communities have a voice in shaping the future. So I'm really pleased to see here all of you in this room, kind of coming together from different media houses and different, in terms of, just in terms of the different work that you're doing, and an excellent bar at the back. But I guess this afternoon, we are not trying to tell you what stories to write and how do you write these stories, because honestly, these are not the skills that any of us in the team here has. That is something that you already know and are experts. I think for us, the conversation today or this meeting or this event today is really about starting a conversation on where is the next generation of important stories might be found. But also, I therefore hope you leave today with new ideas, new collaborations, and perhaps most importantly, new questions. I guess feels like, we're not asking enough questions, so I hope you leave here with new questions. There are a lot of experts in the room, but I guess also if you have these questions and if you're looking for where are those sources of information, we would definitely be happy to connect. Because I kind of really feel the stories that shape the future are often the ones that haven't been told yet. So let's look at new questions, but also find new stories. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Harpreet. So before we move to the main part of the program, we actually want to take a group photo. So if we could have all of you just stay where you are, but if you could stand up and face my colleague on the other side. She's raising her hand. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. That was very, very helpful for our social media team, especially. Next, to kick us off, can I please invite my colleague, Belinda Hlachwayo, who is our Business and Human Rights Project Manager in the UNDP Asia Pacific. So she is going to moderate the next part of this program. So over to you, Belinda.
Hi, everyone. Let's try that again. Hi, everybody. So, moderate is a strong word. The reason why we chose the salon theme as opposed to a dialogue or roundtable is because we want to hear your voices. I know that we often, journalists are never the story, but this time I want to hear your voices. So, I'll tell you what the song means later, and this I'm looking at my colleagues who know exactly what's about to come. Full disclaimer, I have a terrible singing voice, but I would like you all to join me in a call and response song, and I'll tell you what it means very, very shortly. All right, you might know it. Okay. Shosholoza. Okay, one more time. Shosholoza. Very quiet room. Okay, let's see if we can. They should be able to hear in the next side with BBC Bangkok is. All right, let's try that one more time. Shosholoza. Okay, much better. Give yourselves a round of applause. So, why that song? I know that there's at least one person who knows the origins of that song, but maybe, okay, anybody know that song, ever heard of that song? You know it well, okay. Can someone on my team try and get a mic, a handheld mic? Okay, you can, no need for a mic. Tell us a little bit about that song.
South African origins, commonly associated with the anti-apartheid movement. I'll stop there.
Okay, South African origins associated with the anti-apartheid movement. somebody else want to? I did see Nani with the handheld mic, so she'll come to you. Anybody else want to add to the story? No? No? It was also around the time of an economic boom in Southern Africa, right? They discovered gold, I believe, and a lot of migrants were coming in from all over Southern Africa to mine. And Shosholoza is the sound of, it's a song that people would sing on the trains. Now, the interesting story about that song is that it means so much to different people. It is, yes, a rallying cry for the anti-apartheid movement. At one stage, it was also a song that miners used to sing on their way to the mines and back from the mines. Their kids used to sing it back home, and on and on and on. We're in the midst of a similar economic boom. Now, to my slides. Another round of applause for Andreas and Harpreet for making light work of me having to say what are we going to talk about today. The group photo is all done. About agents of change. Now, before I introduce our first guest, a little bit about agents of change. You've heard about bottom-up approaches, our partnership with the EU, which has been a tremendously, I think, fruitful partnership on business and human rights. By show of hands, how many people know what business and human rights is? Okay. Anybody who is working on the project, so from the UNDP or the EU, please keep your hands down. Anybody else who knows what business and human rights is? All right. Again, it's a salon, so I don't want to be the only one to speak. What is business and human rights?
Hi, I'm Dave Welsh. I'm the country director for the Solidarity Center. It's the AFL-CIO's international NGO, so doing labor rights. We do a lot of supply chain cases, to put it bluntly, suing multinationals operating here in Thailand. So business and human rights, in theory at least, is, and I'll just speak to the labor component, but it encapsulates environmental rights as well. Essentially an effort, in my experience, to police supply chains, to have some sort of accountability through supply chains. That a key component of an actual business supply chain is that it adhere to some sort of standard, preferably international standards on labor rights and environmental rights. But I would also say, and I'm happy to discuss further, that unfortunately many of the initiatives so far, whether they be nationally, regionally, globally, have done little more than sort of provide window dressing to foster the notion that multinationals and or governments are engaged, but there's really what unites all of these initiatives, that there's still no actual accountability holding multinationals to comply with the standards they aim to adhere to. So happy to expand further on that, and hope we have an opportunity to do so.
And yes, you will. Please give a round of applause. That was a very comprehensive, short overview. Hello, is this better? Yes, okay. So in short, the business and human rights agenda is really, if you leave with nothing else, protect, respect, remedy. So state duty to protect against populations against human rights abuses, whether they be labor, environmental, gender right, etc. Just a whole plethora of rights. Respect, business responsibility to respect human rights and the environment, and duties and responsibilities for both state and business actors to ensure that there is access to effective remedy. What we do is that we try and engage youth and media in these conversations to also support that accountability framework that you said is sometimes sorely missing. Oh, all right. Oh, okay. So this slide has gone crazy, but just maybe a short run through of today's discussion. We've just had opening remarks, but in order to tell a balanced and nuanced story, we must also hear from businesses, right? So we will have a short fireside chat with a an esteemed colleague from Microsoft who will be coming on shortly. This will be followed by presentations from media on how they've told the story. Then after that, we'll have the salon. We want to hear from you. I encourage everybody to stay until the end because we do have a special announcement and surprise, especially for independent journalists and junior professionals, but that will be coming at the end. That's a little bit about a run of play of today, and apologies, the slide did not comply with me today. Between 6 and 7, to avoid the Bangkok traffic, we welcome everybody to stay for drinks. As Harpreet said, there's a bar, but also a networking conversation. So you can speak to some of the experts that are in the room, whether it is on AI and rule of law. Those experts, please put your hands up. AI and justice colleagues. We also have, again, as we said, Microsoft's business and human rights team. Please raise your hand. Exactly. And then, of course, I don't know everybody in the room, but I hope I will know you all soon. And everybody comes with different expertise, so let's have a joint conversation, yeah? Okay, without much further ado, house rules. I know, I am a Luddite, I will be the first to say, so my tech skills are not great. But very, very quickly on house rules, Chatham House rules. Everyone, we can speak openly, right? Respect one another, but within the context of this conversation, let's be sure not to name and shame. We really want to have an open and honest discussion. You may speak about the issues that we have been discussed today, but please, and this will be, we're really hoping that we all keep true to this. We do not want to reveal affiliations outside the confines of this room and this discussion. Active listening, let's make sure we're all listening to each other. Non-attribution, we've just discussed, and inclusion. Sometimes people are a bit shy to speak, so let's make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. Okay. Now, without much further ado, I know everybody's been really excited for this part. May I welcome Des Teso, Director, Corporate External and Legal Affairs for Thailand, Vietnam, and Emerging Markets. Hi, Des. Help me welcome him with a round of applause. Yes. Either way. So we only have Des's time for a very, very, I think we only have about 20-30 minutes with Des, but it would be good to hear from corporates who are in this conversation around emerging tech. What are some of the challenges, opportunities? What are the journeys when it comes to Asia and the Pacific and this boom? So very, very shortly, Des, tell us about Microsoft's journey so far and investing in Southeast Asia, especially on emerging tech.
Hello. You hear me? Okay. No, first, thank you for inviting me here. When I first got this invitation, I thought, man, should I go and speak to a bunch of journalists on what is very sensitive for the industry at the moment, right? AI, big data center, and the backlashes, right? But I was telling myself, I'm married to a journalist for more than 20 years. Already, right? She's a journalist from Bloomberg. So I said I can try to listen to 30 journalists. So let's see how it goes. I mean, the purpose of me for coming here is actually to share the recent emerging concerns about the tech industry, and then to hear from you about what the industry can do better, right? Particularly around the social license to operate, because that's what we do care about. So I'm in charge of Thailand and Malaysia. In Thailand, you may have heard that in 2024, we announced that we will invest our first data center in Thailand, that along with Indonesia and Malaysia. And then our president came again earlier this year to announce that they will invest 1 billion in the next 2 years to build 3 data centers in Thailand. You know, when I first started this journey, we did a due diligence for any country that we want to invest. We did a thorough due diligence. And part of it is also on human rights, right? It's very important for Microsoft, not only about the commercial value as well, right? And you know, I will say that Thailand was a bit slow in that, you know, for 3 years we were not comfortable for the former government regime, right? We were not comfortable that, you know, is our data safe from law enforcement access and whatnot. So when the administration changed to first civilian government in more than 10 years, we said, let's do it, right? So the Seta Tavisin administration sent his team to Redmond. I was there, part of the delegation, negotiated with her. What do you want? You want renewable energy? We have it. You want this and that? We have it. So we said, let's decide to do it. Now, flashback to 2026 and the last 3 months, conversation has changed, right? This morning I was on the call with BOI to say what, you know, BOI Board of Investment, to say, is there any more benefits you can provide to Thailand? You have to try to clarify that, right? Because they are being hit by the opposition party, and Thailand is not the only one. Australia already issued expectation for data center operators. Malaysia, Johor, you know, welcome investment from all of us, not only Microsoft. They're having problem with electricity or energy shortage, water shortage, and whatnot, right? Increased price in electricity. So all of these, the U.S. as well. There's a quote saying that I'd rather live near the nuclear plant than near the data center, right? So, you know, that's where we are at the moment, right? Microsoft is listening, and we haven't tried to articulate our position yet. What I can tell you now is that since January, we did make an additional pledge about our community first pledge, meaning that you know, first we will not take any subsidy when it comes to electricity price. We will pay full price. We will not take tax subsidies. We will replenish our water. So all of those pledges, that's in 2026. That's still January 2026. But I think that's probably not enough, right? So
I have a quick follow-up, and if you'll indulge me. So I do think that, so thank you first of all for sharing, you know, a corporate perspective. You often don't get to see what's happening behind the scenes. So from what I can gather, you know, from the story, the excitement of emerging tech that we had maybe a year or two ago is now starting to turn into more concern. How are you trying to manage the change, right? Because as the conversation grows, more people are starting to talk about some of the risks associated with, as you said, living near a data center, etc. So how do you reconcile those early investments made with the rising expectations that you're seeing now? Bring us into the boardroom a little bit, if you can.
No, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, of course, we are a technology company, so, you know, for example, issue with energy, how do we, for example, use less energy? So, you know, we develop a new cooling system, for example, instead of, you know, cooling using air condition for the whole data center, we'll use it specifically for the, you know, the chips, the AI chips, you know, like a radiator in the car, for example, right? Using, you know, or reuse water is another one, and then also community program that we have expanding it, and as well as the skilling is a big part of our commitment, right? In Thailand, we train over 2 million people already within the last 2 years. And we're looking at 300,000 workforce training with certificate, right? And the idea is that, the AI economy is coming, right? And, everyone should have a fair shot at this, to take advantage of this AI economy. And what AI does is not really, a lot of criticism for the tech sector is, and SpaceX IPO didn't help, that, you're leaving people behind, right? You're not training them to take advantage of the AI economy. That's something that we are very keen on pursuing. We have startup who we are promoting, for example, at the regional level. We are working with government to bring AI so that they are more efficient, for example.
So when I was doing some research, and this is I'm getting to the end of my questions because I have a whole list of questions that I'd like to ask you. But just very, very quickly, when I was on the Microsoft website, there is this lovely interactive map that you see, especially when you talk about your human rights report and your water strategy, and you can actually see all the different data centers that are being built, right, across the region, but also globally. Now, specifically for Southeast Asia, how are you balancing all these different, you already mentioned Johor, so Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, how are you able to roll out safeguards for very different contexts? I know that we're all in Southeast Asia, but the context in Vietnam is different from the context in Malaysia, is different from the context in Thailand. But how are you managing rolling out safeguards that are appropriate for each of the contexts? Also noting that the communities are also going to be very different, right? Sometimes you're dealing with indigenous population groups, sometimes it's more closer to metropolitan centers, et cetera, et cetera. So just take us into the boiler room a little bit on that.
So in communities where we have data center, we will have a community affairs team to be located at a specific location. Here in Thailand, we have 3 different locations. So there will be 3 different teams within the specific location. But then, we try to not only execute our own activities, but also looking at what the communities are doing as well, right? And try to do that. In terms of the government, one of the things that is a must for us before we go in is actually on the human rights side, and I'm looking at Vietnam now in terms of making sure that our customer data are protected, and that there's no sort of ad hoc law enforcement request for that particular data. If there is such a request, it must be based on a procedure, and for Microsoft, we should have the right to appeal. Right, that's something. And then if there's no such law, for example, Vietnam, we will negotiate for a carve-out and exception. And that's been ongoing. This is some of the work that I'm doing in Vietnam at the moment.
All right, thank you. The team is messaging me that I only have one more question, and I swear this is the last one. What do you think are some of the blind spots in reporting on the emerging tech story in Southeast Asia? What are you seeing as, people are not getting that right, or maybe this is something that's missing from the coverage? What would you say are some of the blind spots? We've got a room of mostly media here, so this is the time to let them know.
I think the social license to operate is very important. We're not just looking at what are the investment incentives by the government, build data center and then, commercialize those services, right? We're looking at being part of the community for the long term. Microsoft is an old company. We are not, so nimble. My boss worldwide is 67 years old. He still have old value. Brad Smith, who was here, right? He's very cautious. He's the people frame him as the reasonable voice in the industry because he will bring reason to the industry. Whereas our competitors are moving at breakneck speed to build data center and whatnot. But having the social license to operate is very important for us.
Okay, and then, so what I'm taking from this very kind of lightning fireside chat is a few things. Investment in data centers was very exciting 2 years ago, but now there are increasing expectations that companies are trying to balance. I hear that there is an emerging practice of having community focal points that report back. So I'm not a journalist, by the way. I am a lawyer by background. So if I've not answered the correct questions, it's just because I'm from a legal background. But just to say that in terms of sources, engaging with these local communities to better understand what the impacts are is probably a good start. And I know that we will have you for at least another hour or so. So we'll all have a chance to speak to you. But just want to say thank you very much, and let's give him a round of applause because this was
Thank you.
Guys, it's a hard room. It's a hard room. And on this front, part of what we do is that we really try and tell what we call a balanced and nuanced story. Right, so even though we recognize that a lot of business and human rights frameworks are still soft law, they're not mandatory law yet in Asia, but the move is towards mandatory, right? We have corporate sustainability due diligence that's just come out in Europe. That's we've got EUDR, CSRD, etc. Thailand is talking about mandatory human rights and environmental due diligence. So a lot of your insights actually speak to those requirements. And Indonesia is also speaking about mandatory human rights due diligence. What does that mean? It means that corporates will have to report on this stuff, and those are new sources of information. Now, I don't want to talk anymore because my grandmother says if you talk too much, you lie. So I'm going to stop talking very, very soon. Just to say, Des will be here for a while longer, so feel free to ask him any questions. Now we're going to move on to how the story has been told. And you're going to hear two views. You're going to hear from an investigative journalist and really talking about how collectives are identifying some of these issues, how are they connecting with communities on the ground, telling the cross-border story. She's looking at me like, oh my gosh, all of this in the time you gave me, yes. And also joining online, we'll hear from a presenter from Channel News Asia, Louise Mabulo, who will talk us through a little bit how some of these innovation stories are told, but how do you make sure that they're still balanced? So without much further ado, let me see if I got the right slide. I would like to invite Parita Wangkiat from Mekong Ai, and online, Louise, I hope you can hear us. Louise, please be on standby. She is the television presenter for Tech to Save the World on Channel News Asia, ambassador for Food and Land Use Coalition, founder of the Cacao Project. I can go on and on and on, but she'll be joining us online. For now, over to Parita, who has a few slides to show us on her reporting on data centers and emerging tech.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, I'm so nervous, so many people, more than what I expect at first. So first of all, let me introduce myself. So I'm editor-in-chief at Mekong Ai, which is a network and platform of environmental journalists in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. We work with journalists and newsroom across these 5 countries to report on environmental and climate stories. So our model focus more on partnership with local newsroom and local journalists to produce the story together, because we believe that local journalists have better access to the informations. And I also work with a journalism network as well, which So actually the project that I'm gonna talk to today would be an intersection with a journalism network project. So can I get the first slide? Oh, okay, I can go. No, There we go. Yeah. So today I would like to talk about Dark Side of the Boom project, which is a collaborative reporting project on resource-intensive digital technology in Asia. So this whole package just won the SOPA award this year, and actually the one who led this project is Sam, who you. How? Where should I pick? No, not this. No, not this slide. Sorry. Back to the first one. Okay. Yeah. So the person who led this project is actually Sam, who you see that little photo there. So Sam Shamsky is an EJN staff that came up with this idea, pitching the story to the team about the environmental footprint of digital intensive technologies since 3 years ago, when AI and data center was not in the global headline. And then because of his consistency, he able to convince the team to launch it last year with the whole package of the news from many partners, including Mekong Ai. This project not just looking at AI and data center, but also look at digital intensive technology beyond, including crypto mining, and even look at scam center. I will talk more about this. So Mekong Ai involved in 3 stories. One is the data center in Vietnam and scam compound along the Thai-Myanmar border, and also crypto mining in Laos. But today, based on Belinda request, I will only focus on the story from Vietnam and Thai and Myanmar border. So next slide, please. I don't want to touch this anymore. So let me jump to the Vietnam story. First, I have to give you the context. So reporting on data center and AI in Vietnam is very, very sensitive. Because it's tied up with the government policy on economic development, which actually promote data center. And also it tied up with the power development plan, which is something quite sensitive for journalists to report on. Because of this sensitivity, the journalists we work with shift to focus more on data-driven stories. Because in Vietnam, if you have solid data, that actually is a really great safeguard for yourself. So in this story, it starts with 2 main questions. Oh, I have to mention that we work with Tia Sang magazine, which is local magazine based in Vietnam. And because of this partnership, we were able to access many local sources and data center inside the country. So this story starts with 2 questions at first. So first, why are global companies interested in locating their data center in Vietnam? And second, can the energy system support this growth? Because you might heard the news that every summer, many cities in Vietnam now facing power shortage, because particularly in the north, because they rely on hydropower, and during the summer the hydropower output usually drop, and that when the power shortage happen. So throughout this reporting, journalists compile a lot of data because there are no official data so far. So they have to compile data from many sources, including the company profile and also local news report, public announcement by the companies. And it's quite time consuming. They also contact over 20 data center insider in Vietnam, but only 3 responded back because of the sensitivity of the issue. So the process is quite challenging. But eventually they were able to identify 23 Pan AI data center project, and also came up with the estimation that this Pan data project gonna consume more than 1.5 gigawatt of electricity. And this is quite significant because if you look at the chart down there, the consumption of Pan data center when compared to other sector consumption is quite a lot. And that actually equivalent to electricity demand for about 14 million people, roughly the population of the whole Ho Chi Minh City. So that led us to another question where the energy gonna come from. And also more context, because at the moment Vietnam have an issue with existing grid is quite under pressure. For example, like I say, in northern Vietnam, hydropower output drop every summer. And also solar and wind farm actually face transmission bottlenecks because the grid system couldn't hold all the power generated from solar and wind farm. And there also a suggestion on solar, building more solar power plant, but then that's gonna be, that won't be practical because you will need like large area of land to build this solar farm to be able to supply the data center, and it needs to be built nearby the data center sites, which mostly will located in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. The land has been quite urbanized now. So the question would be where this land gonna come from. And government also considering building 2 nuclear power plants. But that's gonna happen after 20 and 30, so add more difficulty. And also local communities now start raising concern about these 2 nuclear power plants project already. And government also talk about import more electricity from Laos. And as you know, like the electricity from Laos mainly come from hydropower again. And that gonna face an issue with climate change when prolonging drought reduce the water reserve. And at the same time, I think you know that hydropower dam in Laos actually affect local communities along the river. It alter the river flows. So you see there are so many dilemmas to build a data center. So the story actually question whether there is any clear pathway to find the power, enough electricity to power this data center without affecting the communities, without seizing the electricity from local communities. I think right now the government is working on the plan to address energy consumption, but it's still not clear how this is gonna happen. So that's pretty much the fighting. And the second story, let me jump to Myanmar quickly. So this story is come from the observation in early 20 and 25, when Thailand cut electricity, fuel, and internet sent to border town in Myanmar where the scam center located. And many people expect that this scam center gonna be collapsed right away, but actually it not happened that way. So this story, we found out that scam compound quickly adapt by using large diesel generators believed to be imported through Myanmar and China borders to run the 24 hours operation of scam activity and computer, server, mobile phone, and even running the use of AI generative content to defraud people across the world. So in this story, it's quite challenging to get official sources because this scam center run in a gray area. So reporter couldn't access the scam compound directly. So pretty much of the information need to be rely on citizen journalists inside the compound. So we can actually, from the gathering of information, we can confirm that generators are used, but we don't know how many. But you will see from this video. Can you pay the? Can you hear the noise? So this is the noise of generators that you will hear when you stand at the Thai border, looking across Mui River to scam center. So you can imagine that this loud voice actually show many generators are running. Yeah, at the same time. So I think that's the story we done. I think I need to stop now, right? 30 seconds. Okay, quick lesson learned from this two story and the whole project. So actually reporting on the environmental footprint of digital intensive technology is quite challenging because as you heard that the information about water and energy consumption is difficult to find. So journalists must use like more than, I would say, 3 to 4 sources to pieces together the information to be able to point out that, well, this is gonna be an issue. And also actually the broader takeaway from Sam, my colleague. So he mentioned that public attention and media report now focus pretty much on AI and data center, but there are so many digital technology that have environmental consequence too, including like, what is it called? Quantum computing, spatial computing, metaverse. So there are so many technology that gonna that's gonna consume a lot of energy, and we need to keep like looking at this technology as well, so we wouldn't miss it, you know.
Thank you very much. Please don't worry, I'm about to open it up to the floor because I know it's a lot of information, and I noticed people are on their 3rd, 4th, 5th pages of notes. Very quickly, let's just do a temperature check one more time in the room. Does everybody feel cool? Yes? Is it too hot? Please raise your hand if you think it's too hot. Yes, almost, maybe. It's too hot, yeah? Yeah, I feel the same. Okay. All right. We'll ask them to just cool it down a little bit. And then one more time, because I miss your voices, before we introduce our colleague who's joining online. 1, 2, 3. Shosholoza. Okay, so hot and tired. Let's try that again. Shosholoza. Guys, I'm here all night. I'm going to keep singing until I hear a louder shosholoza than mine. Shosholoza. Thank you very much. Now, joining us online, just our final speaker of the day, I promise, but a very exciting speaker as well, is Louise Mabulo. She is going to give us the other side of the boom, right? So we've seen the dark side, we've seen engagement with different communities, we've heard from Des to hear some of the complexities in the boardroom. All right, now let's also hear what it's like as a young advocate for environmental rights who is presenting essentially on new technology and how it could be a net positive? Question mark. Over to Louise.
Thanks so much, Belinda. I appreciate it, and thank you for the kind introduction. Ladies, gentlemen, excellencies, my name is Louise, and I am the host of a documentary series called Tech to Save the World. I also found my own initiative in the Philippines, which works with grassroots farmers to build sustainable and resilient livelihoods for farming communities. Now, despite being a young person, I am a self-proclaimed technology grandma. And so I hosted this series to see what all the fuss is about the greatest new buzzword that is rocking our system today, which is AI. And amid all the doom and gloom news, I wanted to see what if technology could help us do better. So today when we hear about artificial intelligence, the conversation tends to be dominated by the same headlines. I mean, we've all heard it before. AI is taking our jobs. Data centers consume enormous amounts of water and energy. Technology is becoming too powerful. And it's true, while those conversations are important, we were also wondering if they were also incomplete. So I wanted to show you a trailer of the first episode of the series, and I hope it entices you to watch it, of our documentary called Tech to Save the World. If I could get Tech to quickly play the video, please.
Hello, tech team. Hello, hello. Yes.
That slide right there. I'm traveling the world uncovering tech that gives early warning signals to forest fires.
So the sensors woke up.
It's detected something in the air.
Where extraordinary innovation is helping land and people.
So, pilion nimo ang set deployment site.
Lots of people earn a lot of money with data, so why not the communities on the ground, right?
Tech to Save the World, tonight on CNA. Now, I wanted to use a specific trailer in this specific episode because of something that David had said in it, which is a lot of companies earn a lot from data and AI. And I wanted to show how business and human rights actually have a way of merging with technology so naturally in the form of these new emerging technology startups. So during the filming of this series, there was another divide we found that fascinated us. Somewhere along the way, we noticed that people had started imagining technology and nature as something that exists on opposite ends of a spectrum. When we picture a technological solution to food, for example, I've been working in the food industry for many years. We imagine a $3,000 lab-grown burger somewhere made in California. When we think about climate solutions, we picture giant machines sucking carbon out of the atmosphere in the middle of a testing site in rural Texas. And when we think about conservation, we imagine satellites and algorithms replacing the people on the ground. But what if that's the wrong way of looking at it? So after all, one of the things that I've always said, and I say this in my TED Talks, in my documentaries, is that nature has spent billions of years refining some of the world's most elegant technologies. Trees already make remarkable carbon capture machines. Healthy soils are extraordinary carbon banks. Mangroves, peatlands, and seaweed protect our coastlines and store enormous amounts of carbon. So regenerative agriculture also exists as one of humanity's oldest and most sophisticated technologies. So perhaps the future isn't about technology replacing nature. Perhaps it's about technology helping nature do what it already does best. And so that's what we wanted to explore. Because away from Silicon Valley, there's something even better happening. People are already using AI and technology not to replace ecosystems, but to understand them better, to restore them faster, and to make them more valuable economically to protect. We found that AI that listens to forests and maps biodiversity in a remote island in the Philippines, on the coastlines, helping scientists and fisherfolk understand ecosystems that would otherwise take years to survey. They were called audiomots. We met innovators using blockchain to reward waste collection in slums and landfills, improving recycling systems and making it impossible for communities to leave trash where it was when there was so much value in monetizing that trash. We saw digital noses and the Internet of Things and these sensors in the outskirt forests of Berlin that can literally smell the earliest signs of a forest fire before it even happens. And we stepped aboard cargo vessels in Singapore and in Greece where data and AI optimize fuel consumption, almost like giving a ship its very own Fitbit, reducing emissions from one of the world's hardest sectors to decarbonize. And we found we dove into the sewers of India to look at how robots could remedy a lot of the water crisis and water contamination and health outbreaks. And we even explored new ways of trading renewable electricity and creating smarter energy networks that allow clean power to move where it's needed most. So these kinds of technologies, like drones that can replant forests in a matter of hours, exist. They are not some futuristic, optimistic sci-fi concepts. They're already here, and we wanted to spotlight those. But one thing became clear as we were filming this series. The story was never really about technology or AI. It was always about the people behind them. The founders who believe that nature and innovation don't have to compete with each other. The young people who are garbage collectors, whose livelihoods are improved because of better systems through blockchain. The scientists who are listening for endangered species with fisher folk, keeping them safe from all of these environmental risks in fishing. The ship captains and engineers embracing new ways of operating. And we unlocked a whole new Marvel universe of what I like to call real-life superheroes, working at the front lines of tech who wore a different hat and came up with different sparks of ideas across these different industries. So here's a couple of sound bites from another trailer of Tech to Save the World from a few of them. If I could get the tech team to play the second video, please.
Tech team. Okay, there we go. Thanks.
Our planet is being battered. But can tech like blockchain, AI, and even robots help to restore it? I'm Louise Mabulo. I'm traveling the world.
All right, let's go.
To witness firsthand some amazing tech.
So cool.
That's redefining the fight against climate change.
Evolution has found out its way to kind of have its own Spotify list.
That's incredible.
I was kind of playing with his data, and he had this hunch that with AI, it could be done better.
So the artificial intelligence is now analyzing, is this actually a fire?
Tech to Save the World. Starts 7 March on CNA.
Thanks. Alrighty. Oh, what is happening? Go back one slide. Yes, back to Louise. Louise, thank you so much. That was amazing. 30 seconds for final word.
Thanks so much, Belinda. I think our final word is that, it's the answer to AI and its ecological footprint. We know that it consumes energy, it has a social influence, it has limitless potential, and it raises a lot of ethical questions. But the answer isn't to reject technology. Technology is here to stay. It's just about being intentional about how we use it. Using technology that amplifies human ingenuity instead of replacing it, and strengthening nature instead of competing with it. And technology alone won't save the world. It's the people who save the world with the healthy ecosystems around it, the startups, the ecosystems, the social communities and the grassroots, because technology and AI, and even storytelling of technology and AI, should be a great equalizer and equity builder. And if we use it that way, maybe we could really save the world.
Thank you, Louise, on ending on that very inspiring note. Please, a round of applause. Now, we've heard a lot of information in a very short space of time, a lot. And Louise, please do stay online for a few more moments. I would like to just take a pause. I've asked my burning questions. I have a lot more, but I want to hear any questions that you have for the people you've heard speak. So with a raise of hands, any questions? I see one question here. We'll take maybe 3 at a time. Please say your name, your designation, and who your question is directed to. So we've got the first question. Any other hands so that we can just map it out for ease? Just one? Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more hand. Gender balance of hands, I realize. No? 4, 5, okay. Let's take the first 3 here. Name, designation, and who your question is for.
Hi, I'm Romano. What does designation mean?
Just anything you want to tell us about your role, your profile.
Okay, cool. Romano, I'm a consultant. I help countries do very long-term economic planning. Question is to the representative from Microsoft. Thank you very much. I really took note of what you said on take advantage and wanting to help local populations take advantage of technology that is coming forward. Not to talk too long, but maybe not what is Microsoft doing, but what is your view on how the tech industry can help countries in South Asia, Southeast Asia, take advantage beyond just, if I may say, the more entry-level roles that come in with added technology. An example, in the semiconductor industry, I was working on a project in Vietnam and the Philippines where the whole push was on what they call ATP, so assembly, testing, and packaging of semiconductor chips. Okay. It's the more on the low end of the semiconductor supply chain. There was very little conversation around how to unlock potential and capacity on the higher end of that, such as design, etc. So what do you see as the role tech companies can play, or the PPP role with states to unlock that higher potential so that people can actually take advantage of the technology coming into the region?
Thanks, Romano. I think there were 2 questions here, and then we'll have answers. I hope not all the questions are for one person, because that would make me very sad.
Second try. Still try to keep it short. So as I mentioned, I'm from the educational side, and I think one of my burning questions is really, we talk here about impact, about the effects, we talk about policy, but as we look at even ourselves, we use all these tools. So my question is there anything in place to educate young people, students, to understand that the tools that they are using, that we are teaching them, and I'm among one of those, what impact it has on the environment. So should this not just boil down to policymakers, law, but also to education itself, to schools, universities, to have this broader narrative? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Markenmark, correspondent for Nikkei Asia. My question is to the gentleman from Microsoft. Clearly, there is a backlash based on environment concerns as a result of data centers. I mean, you talked about doing due diligence before you moved into countries. In your due diligence sort of blueprint, going back, not just now, was this backlash ever expected? And the intensity of it. Thank you.
Right. So we will do 2 rounds of questions. So that was the first round, and maybe the first question was actually for. There were 2 questions actually for Des, right on time because Des has to leave soon. So the first question was around how we're making sure that local communities are also part of the value chain. So if you look at whether it's semiconductor production, etc. Then the other one is on the anticipatory nature of due diligence plans, if I got that right. So was your due diligence framework able to see some of these risks ahead of time? And again, noting due diligence is never a perfect process, but what are some of the ways that you are thinking of ameliorating it or making it better? Over to you.
Thank you for the question. In terms of the value creation, it's a great question. I like to tell the government is that, hey, if you want scarce compute, meaning AI chips, to be in your country, you have to open up to US hyperscaler. There's only one company that make AI chips, right? We all know who that is, right? And, and there's the export control around that. Even Singapore is known as at-risk country. Microsoft, AWS, Google are sort of the trusted data center provider. So right there, you can avail yourself to the scarce compute power. In terms of the value creation, I have a project that I'm so proud of. in Thailand, right? Thailand, you know, is you may know is acceding to OECD, right? In order to do so, they must align their laws to OECD legal instruments. So there's 70,000 Thai laws. There are 270 different areas of OECD that they must comply, right? They assigned 5 lawyers from the Office of the Council of State, which is the legal counsel for the Prime Minister. We help them develop an AI solution where, you know, you can map the OECD legal instrument to Thai laws, identify the gaps, right? And then make a recommendation how to close that gaps, right? So this work normally take human 3 to 5 years. You can Google it and see that, right? But Thailand was able to do within 8 months. The Prime Minister submit initial memorandum, 1,000-something pages to OECD. And then OECD recognizes the first AI-assisted or AI support instrument. So this is the type of solution. When I was watching the video, I said, this is the benefit of AI that, you know, a lot of people talk about it, of course. So this is the type of, you know, AI can elevate, you know, society, countries going forward. On the due diligence and backlash, no, we do not anticipate, you know, the energy, especially technology moves so fast. Right now, I don't know if you have opportunity that's a co-pilot, and now that's co-work. Co-work is a type that you can tell them to please answer this email like this, and then it will have an email in your draft email box, and you know, it's very powerful. That sucks a lot of energy for sure, right, out of it. You know, so we don't anticipate that because technology moves so fast, right? So that's something that, again, is evolving. We have to, you know, pause and you know, take, monitor the comments, you know, and be part of the solution. On the education piece, Microsoft actually has revamped the education, our education team. It used to be a sales team, no longer. Now education fall under my group, which is the legal and government affairs. We basically will provide, you know, the free tools to schools, and then, you know, provide sort of curriculum, you know, suggest a curriculum to it. So that's something that, you know, something's important to us as well.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm sensing that we wanted to have table discussions, but I sense that there might be some questions in the room that you really, really want to share. So maybe we'll take a few minutes to do that, and then also have networking. I know that it's about time for, Des was like, Belinda, I have another meeting. So maybe, maybe we'll pause here and just say one final question for Des. Quick question, first hand, before he has to leave. Thank you. So that it went straight up. So maybe just one final question, but Microsoft will have to leave, but our other speakers are still online and they can share. Not for him. Oh, okay. So maybe let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, Des, for joining and helping us also understand the back end, right? So understanding what that the companies were also, AI is moving fast for them too, right? So how do we kind of balance that and tell that nuanced story? Okay, thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you for inviting me. The reason I'm going is because there is a celebration for US 250th birthday that I can't miss, otherwise my competitors will also get in line, and so back to normal fierce competition in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, another round of applause, please, for him. It's not hard. You had one question. Maybe we'll take a round of maybe 3 questions again, and then free flow sharing information about what are some of the trends you're seeing, what are some of the issues you're seeing. So do raise your hand. Maybe the first of the second round.
Thank you so much. I'm Maitin Yumon. I'm a Senior Indigenous Fellow with Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Regional Office. I have two questions. One for Kun Parita. You mentioned about the network of environmental journalists. And now when we're seeing like shrinking of these many civic spaces, what would you name for the biggest challenges for environmental journalists, especially with the shrinking of all these fundings that go to these sectors who are monitoring all these different important topics, right? And then how do citizen? You mentioned about citizen journalists, and for example, in Myanmar, how do you work with them? Because many places, many areas you cannot really access because of all this internet shutdown that we're going through. Sorry, I'm originally from Myanmar, so my question on that. And my other question is to Louisa. I agree with you. I mean, congratulations for such a great initiative, and I agree with you that tech alone cannot save the world, and it's people who save it. My question to you is, have you come across tech? Because when we do not argue that yes, tech makes our life much better for most people who can pay. So tech for whom? That like in your work that you have been doing this job, like has there been best practices that you've come across where tech is really meant for people and end users can really benefit without costing them a lot of money?
Those were a lot of hard questions. So to Parita and Louisa. So Louisa, you're still online? Just checking that the tech team puts Louise back on. All right. Anybody with any questions as well? Any follow-up questions? Oh. There's a lot of hijinks happening with the team. I think it's super late. Yes, please. Just one more question. I hope, Louise, you got that question. Parita? All good? All right.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, Craig. I'm going to stick with Chatham House rules. Craig is my name. Just a question. There seems to be a lot of fragmentation and siloed approaches here. I definitely agree that you can, and no offense, like if you have access to a good media production team, you can go and find anecdotal evidence of good things happening, and I think we should encourage that and try to keep building on those. But I see, and I don't think the solution is necessarily to like kind of jump on Microsoft either. I see a lot of fragmentation, a lot of siloed efforts here, and I was hoping to walk away today feeling a little more encouraged. Unfortunately, I don't. How do we deal with the fragmentation? How do we align the incentives to actually get these stakeholders working together on the, on the civil society media side, but also on the corporate side? To really end the tech side, to really find where we can have transformational change as this technology kind of runs out of control a little bit.
Oh, that's a difficult question. Okay, I'll also help. I'll take that question. So maybe very quickly on actually, how do we align on the fragmentation? This is my view, and I actually welcome Louise and Parita and anybody in the room to also share suggestions that we can hear each other's voices. I think the first is you cannot fix what you don't measure. And I think the first issue is we don't really truly understand the scale. Some of our systems are not fit for purpose on, as we heard Des say, the initial human rights due diligence piece did not pick up some of the key elements around the environmental challenges that they're now facing, right? So how do we maybe build stronger human rights and environmental due diligence practice going forward? Now that Thailand is going to have a mandatory law, how do we make sure that that law is also matched by practice by multinational companies, big companies, etc., so that we don't have this missed link? And then the second piece, I think, for me is shaping the narrative, right? I feel like we haven't had, we need to tell maybe a balanced and nuanced story. I should have started off by saying there are not going to be a lot of answers, but it'll be maybe the beginning of a conversation, right? So how do we tell the balanced, nuanced story of tech innovation, but also of some of the issues that we're seeing? How do we maybe build better systems that communities can also directly input into, you know, what's happening in enforcement, whether it's with government, with companies, etc. So that is, I think, what I would posit as best case scenario. But let's hear from Louise and Parita on the well, actually it's 4 questions. So there is that question about how do we kind of better work together, that's one, but also the lovely question around how you, Parita, I'm sure you got that. It was a 3-pronged question around, you know, how do you tell the story and make sure that there's community engagement, also issues around sensitivities and online shutdowns and digital shutdowns. Over to you. Maybe Parita, you go first, and then Luis.
Okay. I don't need to stand up, no? So I think the biggest challenge now, as you say, is funding. So we work with, so actually it's getting worse after the US funding cut last year. So particularly many of our Myanmar newsroom partners are struggling a lot. Many journalists are in a low-paid position now. And I'm not sure how long they can continue, to be honest. So many that I know, particularly again from Myanmar journalists, they keep doing their work, even with with very low paid situation, living in quite a difficult circumstance, exile in Thailand mostly. No solution yet. Just hope that more funding gonna come in. Another challenge is crackdown on media is getting stronger from the governmental side, particularly in Cambodia and Vietnam. In Vietnam case, sometimes I don't think you would hear a lot of news because it happened without international media acknowledgement. But there are many journalists now that have to be in the safe house because they report on some sensitive issues. And sometimes it doesn't sound like a sensitive issue. For example, like some journalists report on coal-fired power plants and climate change, but the government just doesn't like that, because it somehow hit the reputation of the government. So these things have been happening quietly. So usually when we work with journalists in this environment, we actually prioritize safety. So actually the byline that you have seen on our platform from Vietnam mostly are pen names. We don't expose journalists to the public at the moment. And for the question on citizen journalists, so mainly we partner with news outlet from Myanmar who already work with citizen journalists, and they already have the network of citizen journalists inside the country. But yeah, like you say, internet shutdown is an issue now. So many use Starlink at the moment. For example, we just work with someone in Yakai State, and they use Starlink to connect with us, but the cost is quite high. So we have to find the funding to support their communication cost. And also in many cases, like we also work with the citizen journalist called CJ Platform, which there is a case study, one case, actually like we just work on one story with video footage, and the journalists have to hand the footage across the border. so the newsroom can get that footage to publish on their platform. So it's difficult, but there are some ways to work around that.
Thank you, Parita. Luis, before you respond, I just wanted to quickly check if we have any questions from the virtual room. So my colleague Karis, do we have any questions there? Okay, perfect. So Luis, do you want to quickly respond to the room as well on some of the questions we heard?
Yeah, absolutely. I could take it away while people are still writing out questions. So the first question around, which one was this? Have you come across tech and tech for whom? So where people actually benefit from it. There are two really interesting stories, because I love to be an optimist when it comes to this. One of them was a blockchain system that incentivizes low-income trash collectors, somehow using cryptocurrencies and being able to pay them out to increase their incentivization with recycling for plastic. So for plastic bottles, the institution was called Plastic Bank. And I was able to visit a trash collector who was able to rebuild his home. Now, on the ironic part of the story was that this trash collector was living in a slum at a landfill amid factories that was a very industrial town. It's very well known for, manufacturing. So he's the victim and very much a climate vulnerable person to many of the problems that are caused by unsustainable business practice. But because of this AI and tech, he was incentivized to be able to collect it and become part of the solution, so that these plastics and the trash that are causing floods and problems in their landfill and their slum would be a solution. And it created this whole new livelihood and economic system that doubled their income, that allowed them to have technology and iPads and put their children through school. So somehow technology can help people. There's another institution that works with universities in the global north. And what I did was I spoke to their founder in Switzerland. And then I went to an island community in the Philippines where I spoke to a fisher folk who is a person who uses their AI platform. And through these audio moths, they install it into trees and they're paid per minute for the data of the ecosystem around them, so that they know what kind of biodiversity is in the area. Because he says, in science, what we're seeing with biodiversity is we're seeing a huge GDP map. We're not really seeing the actual data of biodiversity. So what if we can incentivize the local communities who are low income, who live in these places, and give them money for that kind of data and that information? And so these fisher folk are paid per minute of data, sound data that they collect, but also tree data from drone mapping and from measuring on the ground the size of mangroves and which communities have mangrove forests. And it works with local NGOs. And it seems to pay out, and it seems to be quite lucrative. There's a fisher folk who got kidnapped by pirates at sea, and he gave up on fishing. His wife told him, don't go out to sea anymore. And he needed an alternative job, and so he became a data collector and a citizen scientist. And I think that was an incredible way of seeing how all of these different emerging technologies can be used for the benefit of these local communities and protect them and actually make them agents of change. Having said that, this is small pockets of AI and technology and financing being used in smaller places in the middle of nowhere where you've never heard of it, with elderly and young communities who probably haven't graduated college. They're definitely far from tech bros. So that's, I think, positive and good examples. And yes, it's possible. The question is, how do we scale it across these things where ChatGPT can actually be much more helpful to us and better to the environment? And on to the second question, it was around the fragmentation, because I know, Belinda, you've already answered this. But I think one of the conversations we have is how we tell these stories matter. It needs a coordinated infrastructure of people in these industries. I like to call myself a bridge builder or a dot connector, where you need intermediaries between artificial intelligence, business, because everyone is a subject matter expert, but no one is this bridge builder that connects, say, storytelling, science, conservation, AI, blockchain, crypto, all of these different things. Like, no one is perfect at all of them, but there's definitely a lot of us. We just need a way to coordinate and also discuss where power is held in these conversations. Because depending on the dialogue or the salon that you're having, someone else holds the power in that conversation. So we need to kind of create a leveler where the people who benefit or are most impacted actually hold the power. In the case of the mangrove story, for example, or the trash collection story, the data, the trash, the resources are with the lower income people who are benefiting and impacted by that system. So that's what I loved about it. And that's kind of the stories that we wanted to tell.
Brilliant. Thank you, Louise. I think we have time for exactly one or maybe two more. And I'm looking at my colleague Karis there because we have a few from the virtual room. And there's one here as well. Okay, so maximum 3. Can you pass it to Karis?
Thank you. So I will bring 2 questions from the virtual room. The first one is by Mr. And apologies if I mispronounce your name, Vikar Ahmed Mohammed Sarbat. When an algorithm amplifies misinformation that leads to social unrest, who should be held accountable? The platform, the developer, the government regulator, or the user? And then the second one is from Lena from Article 19. Article 19 Asia has piloted a human rights impact assessment, Clarity, specifically focused on supporting local CSOs. So this tool was made available in Myanmar and Vietnam, with a focus on technology and freedom of expression, and it found that in Vietnam, 15% of the content taken down concerned environmental issues, and this was not sufficiently addressed by technology companies. So the question is, how can the private sector facilitate civil society engagement in HRIAs in the region, and are there more opportunities to cooperate on HRIAs beyond trusted partner programs with some social media platforms? So both pretty long. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Karis. That is for my colleague Belinda to answer, but also Louise wanted to know if you want to quickly respond to some of that. Oh, I think her audio is...
she's on mute.
You're on mute. Can we check in the back? Just a second.
Okay, there's a setting that I can't unmute myself. I promise. I'm young. I know how to unmute myself. But I think for now, I'll let Belinda take the lead on this. I'm trying to gather my thoughts because they're really tough questions. But with the first question on, algorithms amplify misinformation, I feel like a little bit of everyone. It depends on, because there was a study that I remember watching at National Geographic about how algorithms are trained on biased information because fundamentally they're already created by men in global north places. They're not really designed for us in the global south, despite the fact that the global south is a training ground for AI and all of these things. So it becomes a question of how the regulations are done and who's in charge of it. And I think a little bit of everyone is liable to this. But Belinda, I'd love to hear your thoughts from a lawmaking perspective.
Hello. Okay, so quick vote. And this is also, my team is involved. Do you think I'm about to show a slide or sing a song? So hands up if you think I'm going to show a slide. 3, 4 people believe in my slides. Okay, how many of you think I'm going to sing Shosholoza again until you're like, oh my gosh. Ha 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 ha, I'm going to show a slide. Can we have the slide deck, please? Okay, let's see if I can quickly. So, this slide goes towards, I think, a number of questions that we've been talking about because we're using tech and AI, I think, interchangeably, right? Because and somebody mentioned earlier that it's not just AI, but there's a whole universe. I think Parita said there's quantum, all the computing. There's a whole universe of emerging technology sectors, subsectors that we're not looking at. So this slide shows an early conversation that we had last year about how do we safeguard human and environmental rights in new technology. And this particular conversation had AI experts, it had environmental rights defenders, it had youth. And as you can see, it's very, very there's a lot to consider, right? There's the hardware part, there's the software part, etc. The question on who is accountable. Let me see if I can see here. All right, I'll just share the slide. It is in your pack. I'm trying to see how many people actually read the briefing pack, but this is actually in your pack. But there is a question around misinformation and who's accountable, whether it is the platforms, is the state, or it is the users themselves. There is an increasing amount of legislation that is actually finding that it might be the platforms. So a lot of cases have come out from the global north, I must say. So anybody heard about the recent case in, was it the US or the UK? No? Yes, about issues around child rights. I think that was the first one. The responsibility of tech industry when it comes to safeguarding child rights. But increasingly, there's also more conversations around platform accountability for misinformation and disinformation, amplification of misinformation and disinformation. So it is part of this kind of wider ecosystem of, even in its use, who is accountable? And this is an ongoing discussion. We will add to the post-event pack some of these interesting cases so that you can also take a look. And there's a case watch so you can see how these cases are evolving over time, because these conversations are also coming to Southeast Asian courts. On human rights due diligence, we've used this term a lot today. Hands up who knows what human rights due diligence is. 2. Oh my goodness, why didn't you say anything? 3? Okay. Human rights due diligence is a process whereby companies have to identify, prioritize, address, and communicate their human rights risks and impacts. So when we're talking about Thailand moving towards mandatory human rights due diligence, we are talking about the fact that companies of a certain scope will have to do this, and it will be publicly reported. Now, somebody said, how do we make sure stakeholders are engaged? The final step of human rights due diligence actually requires you, actually you're supposed to do it throughout, you're supposed to have effective stakeholder engagement. Another source for everyone, Section 17. I told you I'm not media, but I'm a lawyer. Section 17 of the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive specifically says there needs to be effective stakeholder engagement. That means that if a company is a trading partner with the EU, as part of their HRDD, they need to show effective stakeholder engagement. And that's what you can keep your eye on. Okay. So all of those who voted that I would sing, ha 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 ha, but that is the very short answer to a long question. We do have a few human rights due diligence guides available at the back, but it's also part of your briefing and post-briefing pack, so you can read at your leisure to see what is on the horizon in terms of legislation. Okay, sorry, one question, and then the surprise. And then everyone gets to eat.
Test. Hi, my name is Ken Korana. I'm a researcher. We spoke about a lot of nice stories. My question is about misuse of technology. Like we have seen those big generator noise just now we heard, and it also concerns human rights because a lot of people trapped in there. Why haven't till now we been able to do nothing about it? You showed in your slide that it's become worse rather than better. So what is UN doing there? Sleeping, or maybe they have to ask some outsider to bomb the place and get it done? Thank you.
I do see, out of the corner of my eye, I do see our portfolio manager. The question is, why are we not doing more in terms of the the noise and the abuses that we see. So maybe Harpreet to answer the final question and then the surprise that everybody's waiting for. I know. Yeah.
I think I'll start by I'm not going to try to defend the UN or any other organization on this. I don't think I'm going to start with that. But having said that, I think there are different teams and there are different organizations or agencies within the UN that look at some of these impacts and have actually been very, very closely monitoring. UNDP has itself within the UNDP, we have a team that looks at sort of, more broadly sort of the new technologies and AI. I think last year also our annual report and our human development report really focused on AI and new technologies as well, where some of these issues were raised. And then in our conversations when our leadership, when we meet with different companies, but also with different governments, we raise these issues. I mean, at UNDP, we supported the process for development of national action plans on business and human rights in many countries. And technology, I guess, is one of the areas that has come up in many of these conversations with governments, with ministries, where we have advocated to look at it more closely. I'm aware that even with the OHCHR, we have a BTech team, and we have a representative here also from the OHCHR's BTech team that very closely look at, some of those impacts of these companies, but been working with them, not just to kind of, again, find problems, but really also working to kind of find solutions and create a network of businesses and multi-stakeholder forums that kind of, helps addressing these issues. Having said that, I guess, we all kind of also have our different mandates. And I think among different UN agencies, for example, UNICEF is really looking at the impact of technology and how children and child rights are impacted by it. So I guess there are different agencies who are looking at different ways. But I mean, having said that, I guess there's much more that can be done, there needs to be done. But we take your feedback on that. So thank you.
I gave her the hard question. So thank you, Harpreet, for that. Alrighty, it's getting late. It's getting late, and I know that I'm standing between, Harpreet, please don't leave. I'm standing between people and the networking reception. So again, there are lots of experts in the room. If you haven't had a chance to have to ask your question, please stay for, we have the room from 6 to 7, have a drink, have a conversation. Let's actually unpack this. Before we move on to the closing, this is the surprise I've been promising for forever. In truth, what we've heard over the last few hours is that we need better stories. We need better collaborations. We need to hear better stories from the ground. We need to hear the balanced, nuanced opinion. So this is an initiative that's near and dear to my heart. If you know any young journalists, if you know any independent journalists or junior journalists or mid-career journalists, this is an opportunity, so to please send it to them. We call this the Asia in Focus series, and essentially what we are looking for is to start telling the stories of, emerging tech and the impacts on human rights and environment, and trying to tell that balanced and nuanced story. What we are asking for, 10-minute documentary, short documentary, with 2-minute verticals. We really are looking for an editorial angle where we have balance, nuance, and solutions journalism as well. So this is an upcoming opportunity for young journalists if they would like to apply. Who should apply and what is the deliverable? We're looking for independent journalists, junior to mid-career, multimedia storytellers, production collectives, advocacy campaigners, the bridges, as Louise said. Unfortunately, we're really looking at, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we are starting off with those who are based in Indonesia, Malaysia, Mongolia, Thailand, because of our focus countries, but cross-border collaborations are encouraged. We're looking at anybody with about 3 years of experience. What does this look like? They will receive a small grant. They will also receive mentorship. We have a limited number of grants that are available, but we're really hoping that we can surface some of these stories. This will be shared with you as well. So if you know anybody you'd like to share it with, please do. All of these documentaries will be shown at our next Corporate Sustainability and Environmental Rights in Asia conference that brings together business leaders, crucially, and governments on this subject. So making sure that those stories are also heard by people who are writing the policies, who are, part of the discussions in the boardroom. Without much further ado, I said that as quickly as I can. I would like to hand over to Harpreet.
No, thanks, Belinda. And I guess my job actually is really simple. I'm not going to take a lot of time, but my job, as I understand right now, is to thank all of you, but also take this opportunity to thank a lot of people who have been behind, organizing this this event today. First of all, definitely, I think our gratitude to the EU for continuing to support this work, and also to kind of support with this, some of these grants that would be sort of disseminated among young journalists, and opportunity for them. So taking this opportunity to thank the EU, who's had to leave, our speakers, Des, Louis, and they continue to engage with us as well, but also more importantly our partners at EGN, also just because I think for us it's not just like one stop partnership with them, but I think just in terms of a very, very concrete engagement both on ground, but also like continued partnership where we could work and support some of the journalists or the networks that they work with. But I think I do want to also take this opportunity to thank my team. I know Belinda and Aparna has been behind it, but there's a lot of other colleagues who have really been working hard to put this together. So can I have a round of applause for all of our team members? We have our very young interns, both Harim and Nani, who's standing at the back. Also not going to be in the picture, one of them, but also our colleagues, from other departments who helped us put this event together. Last not the least, I guess, thanks to all of you. We could have done all of this, but if you wouldn't have shown up, I think wouldn't have helped at all. So thank you so much for making the time. And I think let's eat. Yes, I guess let's eat and drink. And talk. So we do hope that you build new connections, but also if you have any questions about our programming or anything, please do reach out to us. And thank you again very much. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.